Emma Marshall stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, carefully applying concealer to hide the dark circles under her eyes. At 31, she looked older than her years, not in wrinkles or gray hair, but in the weary resignation that had settled into her gaze. "Emma!" Brenda's shrill voice penetrated the bathroom door. "How long are you going to be in there? I need to clean the sink before my bridge club arrives." "Just a minute," Emma called back, her voice calm despite the familiar tightening in her chest. She hastily finished her makeup, took one final glance at herself, and opened the door. Brenda Watson stood there, arms crossed over her chest, a cleaning spray in one hand and a rag in the other. At 63, Noah's mother maintained the erect posture and commanding presence of the elementary school principal she'd been before retirement. Her ash blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, her expression perpetually disapproving. "The sink's a mess," she commented, brushing past Emma into the bathroom. "Look at these water spots. Do you never wipe it down after you use it?" Emma bit back a retort. "Sorry, Brenda, I was running late for work." "You're always running late. Noah was up and out an hour ago." "Noah starts earlier than I do." Emma kept her voice even, the way she'd learned to over the past 3 years. "I'll see you tonight." Brenda didn't respond, already spraying the counter and muttering about water spots and toothpaste residue. As Emma gathered her purse and briefcase, she mentally counted the months left until she could leave. 3 more months of saving, and she'd have enough for a deposit on her own place. First month's rent, basic furniture, and a small emergency fund. 3 more months of playing the dutiful daughter-in-law, of keeping quiet, of pretending she didn't notice the constant criticism. Noah was already gone as usual. Her husband of 3 years left early each morning for his job as sales director at a regional distribution firm across town. They barely spoke anymore. Brief exchanges at dinner under Brenda's watchful eye, mumbled goodnights before falling asleep on opposite sides of their queen-sized bed. It wasn't always this way. 4 years ago, Emma had fallen hard for Noah Watson. They'd met at a party thrown by mutual friends. Noah with his easy smile and attentive gaze, bringing her drinks, asking questions about her life as a financial controller, seeming genuinely interested in her answers. He'd courted her beautifully over the following year. Surprise flowers delivered to her office, weekend trips to charming bed and breakfasts, long conversations about their dreams and plans. When he'd proposed after a year, Emma had said yes without hesitation. Noah talked about starting a family, buying a house with a yard, building a future together. Emma, who'd grown up in a chaotic household with parents who argued more than they spoke, was entranced by Noah's vision of stability and partnership. Then had come Brenda's suggestion, just after the wedding. "You two should live with me for a while," she'd said, her tone casual, but her eyes calculating as she'd served them coffee in her immaculate living room. "Save up for your own place quietly, without paying rent or extra expenses. I'll help you get on your feet." It had seemed like a gift, a beautiful 3-bedroom apartment in a nice neighborhood, rent-free. Noah had been enthusiastic. "Mom's place is bigger than anything we could afford right now," he'd pointed out. "We could save for a down payment in a year or 2. Emma had agreed, ignoring the small voice of caution in her head. She'd only met Brenda a handful of times before the wedding. Noah's mother had been too busy to be involved in much of the wedding planning, but she'd seemed pleasant enough, if a bit formal. The help had ended a month after they moved in. It started with small things. "Emma, you oversalted the soup." "Emma, why did you forget to close the bathroom window again?" "Emma, why did you buy that brand of yogurt? I specifically asked for the other kind." Then the small things had escalated into a system. Brenda monitored Emma's every move, when she left for work, when she returned, whom she spoke with on the phone, what she made for dinner, how she folded the laundry. Nothing was ever right, never up to Brenda's exacting standards. Noah either kept silent or agreed with his mother, depending on the circumstances. He hadn't known how to argue with Brenda since childhood. It was easier to agree, nod, and wait it out. At first, Emma had tried talking to her husband, explaining that living this way was unbearable. "That's just how Mom is," he'd shrug. "What can you do? Just deal with it for a little while. We'll move out soon." Soon had stretched into 3 years. Emma walked to the subway station, her heels clicking against the concrete. The March morning was cold, the sidewalk still slick from yesterday's rain. She pulled her threadbare jacket tighter around her, mentally calculating how much longer she could make it last. Another month, maybe 2. She'd been putting off buying a new coat, adding those dollars to her escape fund instead. $25,200. That was the current balance in her secret savings account. Every month, she put away almost her entire net salary of $4,500, living off the $500 allowance Noah transferred to her checking account. He had no idea about her savings. Why would he ask? In his mind, he was being generous, supporting his wife with spending money, as if Emma were a teenager rather than a professional woman with an accounting degree and a responsible position at a construction and development company. The train was crowded as usual. Emma held onto a pole, swaying with the motion, her mind drifting to her plans. A small one-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy, just clean and quiet. Her own space where no one would criticize how she loaded the dishwasher or comment on how much time she spent in the shower. Freedom. Emma's day at work passed in a blur of spreadsheets, invoices, and meetings. As senior financial controller, she oversaw millions in transactions, earned respect from her colleagues, and made decisions that impacted the company's bottom line. Here, her opinion mattered. Here, she wasn't constantly wrong. At lunchtime, her colleague Shayla knocked on her cubicle wall. "Lunch date?" she asked, holding up a salad container. Emma smiled, a real smile, not the careful one she wore at home. "Sure, I could use the break." They settled in the building's small courtyard, despite the chill. Emma preferred the privacy, away from curious ears in the break room. "So," Shayla began, spearing a cherry tomato with her fork, "how's life with the dragon lady?" Shayla was the only person at work who knew about Emma's home situation. Not all of it, but enough. Emma had needed someone to confide in, and Shayla, with her straightforward manner and loyal heart, had become that person. "Same as always," Emma sighed. "Last night I apparently loaded the dishwasher wrong. Again. The glasses go on the top rack, aligned with the prongs, not between them. God forbid I put a mug where a glass should be." "I don't know how you stand it." Shayla shook her head. "I would have told her where to stick those prongs ages ago." 3 more months, Emma said quietly. "I've almost saved enough. First and last month's rent, security deposit, basic furniture, and a little cushion. Then I'm out." "What about Noah? Have you talked to him recently? Like really talked?" Emma's expression clouded. "I've tried. So many times. She trailed off, looking for the right words. "He can't stand up to her. Never could. It's like he's still 10 years old when she's around." What Emma didn't say was how much that realization had hurt. The man she'd fallen in love with, confident, decisive, playful, disappeared in his mother's presence, replaced by someone who deferred to Brenda in all things, who wouldn't defend his wife against even the most unfair criticism. "There's something you should know about Brenda," Shayla said, lowering her voice. "My Aunt Judith was in her bridge club years ago. Apparently Noah's father walked out when Noah was just 5. Didn't even say goodbye, just left a note and disappeared. Rumor was he'd been having an affair for years." Emma frowned. "Noah never mentioned that. He just said his parents divorced when he was young." According to Judith, Brenda had a complete breakdown, couldn't work for months. Noah was basically raising himself while she stayed in bed crying. When she finally pulled herself together, she became, controlling. Noah was all she had, and she wasn't going to lose him too. Emma felt a sudden, unwelcome pang of sympathy for her mother-in-law. "That's terrible, but it doesn't excuse how she treats me." "Of course not," Shayla agreed. "But it might explain why Noah can't stand up to her. He probably spent his childhood walking on eggshells, afraid that any wrong move would send her back to bed." The pieces clicked into place. Noah's desperate need to keep his mother happy, his avoidance of conflict, his habit of agreeing with whatever Brenda said, even when it contradicted something he'd said earlier. He'd been conditioned from childhood to put his mother's emotional well-being above all else. "He promised we'd move out," Emma said softly. In the beginning, when things started getting bad, he kept saying it was temporary. But every time I bring it up now, he has a reason why we need to stay longer. The housing market is too expensive. We should save more for a down payment. His commute would be longer if we moved. There's always something. And meanwhile, you're the punching bag. I've tried everything, Emma admitted. Being extra helpful, staying out of her way, agreeing with her, standing up to her. Nothing works. She's determined to find fault with everything I do. Because you threaten her, Shayla pointed out. You're the other woman in her son's life, the woman who could take him away from her. Emma laughed without humor. Well, she's winning that battle. Noah and I barely talk anymore. When we do, it's about practical things. Bills, schedules, whose turn it is to buy groceries. I can't remember the last time we had a real conversation, just the two of us. The gap between them had widened slowly, then all at once. Date nights had dwindled, then stopped entirely. Weekend mornings in bed had given way to Brenda's insistence that breakfast be served promptly at 8. Evenings once spent talking about their days had been replaced by silent dinners under Brenda's critical eye, followed by Noah watching TV while Emma retreated to their bedroom with a book. When had she last seen that brilliant smile that had first attracted her to him? When had they last laughed together, made plans together, dreamed together? Emma checked her watch. We should head back. I have a meeting at 2. As they packed up their lunch containers, Shayla asked, Have you thought about what happens after you leave? With Noah, I mean. Emma had thought about little else for months. I don't know, she admitted. Part of me hopes that once I'm gone, he'll realize what he's lost and finally stand up to her. But another part of me thinks it's too late. That even if he did, I couldn't trust him again. And if he doesn't change? Emma's eyes hardened slightly. Then I'll file for divorce and move on with my life. I'm not spending another 3 years waiting for him to choose me. Dinner that evening followed the usual pattern. Brenda had made pot roast, placing a large serving in front of Noah, a modest portion on her own plate, and an even smaller one for Emma. The potatoes and carrots were similarly distributed. Noah received the lion's share, while Emma's serving was barely enough for a child. How was your day, son? Brenda asked, ignoring Emma completely. Noah sighed, running a hand through his sandy hair. At 34, he was still handsome, though stress had etched lines around his eyes and mouth that hadn't been there when Emma met him. Exhausting. The Mitchell account is being difficult about pricing. They want a 15% discount on a massive order. You'll handle it, Brenda said confidently. You've always been so good at managing difficult clients. She turned to Emma, her smile fading. And you? Everything all right at the office? The question held a hint of condescension, as if Emma's job were a little hobby, nothing serious compared to Noah's important work. Fine, Emma answered briefly. We finalized the quarterly reports today. Well, that's nice, Brenda said dismissively, turning back to Noah. Listen, I was thinking we should drive up to the cabin this weekend and check how it looks after the winter. We need to make sure the roof isn't leaking before the spring rains really start. The cabin was a small vacation home Brenda had inherited from her parents, located about 2 hours upstate. Emma had been there exactly twice in 3 years. Both visits marked by Brenda's complaints about Emma tracking in dirt, using too many towels, or not helping enough with meal preparation. Good idea, Noah nodded while chewing. We could go Saturday. Perfect, Brenda beamed at her son before glancing at Emma. And you can stay here and prepare a nice lunch for when we get back. We'll be hungry after all that work. It wasn't a request or a suggestion. It was a pronouncement, a decision already made without consulting Emma. As usual. Emma said nothing, methodically eating her small portion of pot roast. She'd long since learned that objecting would only lead to a lecture about selfishness and not being a team player. Besides, a Saturday alone in the apartment, even Brenda's apartment, sounded like heaven. After dinner, Emma began clearing the table. Brenda immediately stopped her. Leave it, she said curtly. I'll do it myself. You never stack the dishwasher properly anyway. Emma set the plates back on the table and left the kitchen without a word, passing Noah in the hallway as he headed to his usual spot on the living room couch to watch television. Noah, she said quietly, catching his eye. Can we talk? He frowned slightly. About what? Us. This situation. He glanced toward the living room where his favorite crime drama was about to start, then back at Emma. Later, okay? I'm exhausted tonight. Later never came. It never did. Emma went to their bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. 25,200. Just 3 more months of saving, and she'd be free. She switched to her apartment hunting app, scrolling through listings she'd saved. 1-bedroom apartments on the outskirts of the city, most between 2,200 and 1,500 a month. Nothing fancy, but clean, recently renovated with good natural light. She'd calculated everything carefully. First and last month's rent, plus security deposit. $4,500. Basic furniture. A sleeper sofa, a small table and chairs, a dresser, maybe a desk. $5,000 if she bought decent used pieces. Dishes, bedding, kitchenware, another $2,000. Moving costs and miscellaneous expenses, $1,000. That would leave her with nearly $13,000 in savings, enough to feel secure while she settled into her new life. The door opened without a knock. Noah looked in, already changed into his pajamas. I'm going to bed. Early start tomorrow. Okay. He walked to their shared dresser and pulled out a clean t-shirt. Emma watched him, this stranger who was her husband. She had loved him once. His kindness, his attentiveness, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Now she felt nothing. Not anger, not resentment, not even disappointment anymore. Just emptiness. Noah, she said suddenly, do you remember when we went to that bed and breakfast in Vermont? For my birthday the first year we were dating? He paused, t-shirt in hand. Sure, that place with the really good pancakes, right? Yes, Emma smiled slightly. And you arranged for the owner to leave champagne and strawberries in our room while we were out hiking. You said it was because every day should be special, not just birthdays. Noah looked uncomfortable. Yeah, I remember. What happened to us? He sighed, sitting heavily on his side of the bed. Nothing happened, Emma. We grew up. We're dealing with real life now, not weekend getaways. Is this what you want? She pressed. Living with your mother, barely talking to each other, going to bed at 9 o'clock every night? It's temporary, he said, the familiar refrain. Until we save enough for a down payment. We've been saying that for 3 years, Noah. 3 years. He stood up abruptly. What do you want me to do, Emma? Kick my mother out of her own home? She's been generous letting us stay here. I want us to get our own place, Emma said, keeping her voice calm with effort. Even if it's a tiny apartment, I want us to have a life together, just the two of us. We can't afford— We can, she interrupted. With both our salaries, we could easily afford something decent. Maybe not in the fanciest neighborhood, but somewhere that's ours. Noah ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she knew well. It's not that simple. Mom needs me around. Since she retired, I'm all she has. And what about what I need? Emma asked quietly. What about us? He looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. For a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of the old Noah, the man who had pursued her, cherished her, promised her a future. Then his expression closed off. We'll talk about it later. I'm tired. He lay down on his side of the bed, turning his back to her. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out in sleep. Emma sat for a long time in the darkened room, listening to the faint sounds of Brenda talking on the phone in the living room. She was probably speaking with her sister Denise, as she did every night. The words were indistinguishable, but the self-satisfied tone was familiar. The same condescension, the same certainty of being right about everything. Tomorrow would be like today, and the day after that, an endless cycle of criticism and silence, of feeling invisible in her own life. 3 more months, Emma reminded herself. 90 more days of keeping her head down, of saying yes, Brenda, and sorry, Brenda, and you're right, Brenda. 90 more days of watching her husband choose his mother over her, over and over again. 90 more days of pretending she didn't notice how her clothes were always placed on the bottom shelf of the closet, how her favorite foods never appeared on the shopping list, how her opinions were dismissed before she finished expressing them. Then she would walk away, quietly and calmly, without drama or explanation. She would close the door on this life and begin again. Emma got ready for bed, washing her face and brushing her teeth in the ensuite bathroom. She applied her night cream with careful, measured strokes, an act of self-care that felt almost rebellious in this household where any attention to herself was seen as vanity or selfishness. As she slipped under the covers, careful not to disturb Noah, she allowed herself a small, secret smile. They thought they knew her, the accommodating daughter-in-law, the submissive wife, the woman who could be controlled through criticism and silence. They had no idea who she really was or what she was capable of. 3 more months, and then they would find out. 2 weeks later, Emma found herself lingering outside a store window on her way home from work. The coat that had caught her eye was displayed on a mannequin at the center of the window. Dark blue wool, beautifully tailored, with a fitted waist and a flattering collar. It was exactly what she needed to replace her worn, shapeless jacket. She checked the price tag, $800. Normally, she would have walked away immediately. Every dollar saved was a dollar closer to freedom. But something made her pause. She had been denying herself so much for so long. Not just material things, but joy, comfort, pleasure. Always saying no to herself. Always putting her needs last. Maybe, just this once, she could say yes. Emma entered the store before she could change her mind. The salesperson, a stylish woman in her 50s, smiled warmly. "That blue coat in the window caught your eye, didn't it? I've seen you looking at it several times this week." Had she? Emma realized she must have been subconsciously noticing it on her daily walk from the subway to the office. "It's beautiful. Would you like to try it on? I think it would look stunning with your coloring." Minutes later, Emma stood before a full-length mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The coat fit perfectly, emphasizing her slender waist, the color bringing out the blue in her eyes. For the first time in months, she looked like herself. Not the faded version who moved quietly through Brenda's apartment, but the confident professional she was at work. "It's perfect," the salesperson said, making small adjustments to the collar. "Like it was made for you." Emma checked the price again. $800 was more than she'd spend on clothing in the past year combined. It would delay her plans by... She did the mental calculation. Less than a week. 1 week more in Brenda's apartment for a coat that made her feel like herself again. "I'll take it," she said, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. She paid with her main credit card, the one linked to her personal account, not the allowance card from Noah. The salesperson boxed up her old jacket and helped her into the new coat. "Enjoy it," she said, handing Emma the store bag containing her old jacket. "You deserve something beautiful." The words stayed with Emma during her subway ride home. Did she deserve beautiful things? Brenda would say no. Brenda would say she was foolish, wasteful, irresponsible for spending money on a coat when her old one was perfectly functional. Noah would side with his mother, as always. But they didn't know about her savings. They didn't know she had managed to put away over $25,000 while living under their control. They didn't know she was planning to leave. Emma's steps slowed as she approached the apartment building. The familiar dread settled in her stomach, the knowledge that behind that door waited criticism, coldness, constant reminders that she wasn't good enough, would never be good enough. She straightened her shoulders, feeling the luxurious weight of the new coat. For once, she would walk in with her head high. Brenda was waiting in the foyer, as if she'd been standing by the door listening for Emma's key. Her eyes immediately zeroed in on the coat. "What is that?" she demanded, jabbing a finger at the garment. "A coat," Emma replied calmly, removing it and hanging it on the coat rack. "My old one was worn out." Brenda's eyes narrowed, her gaze moving from the coat to the store bag in Emma's hand. "How much?" Emma met her mother-in-law's gaze steadily. $800. Brenda's face contorted, flushing an alarming shade of red. $800? Have you lost your mind? "I needed a coat," Emma repeated, keeping her voice even. "My old jacket was falling apart." "You're living off our generosity," Brenda hissed, advancing on Emma. "You're living in my home, rent-free, not contributing to utilities, eating food I buy, and you have the audacity to spend $800 on a piece of fabric? I bought the coat with my own salary, Brenda, Emma said, feeling a dangerous calm spreading through her. Money I earned myself. What is your salary? Brenda scoffed. You live in this family, so all money is shared. You should have consulted me, asked permission. Maybe we needed that $800 for something important. The calm inside Emma hardened into something cold and sharp. I don't need permission to spend money I earned myself on something I need. Oh, is that right? Brenda crossed her arms over her chest, her expression thunderous. Getting arrogant now, are we? Well, we'll see about that. She turned and stalked into the kitchen, muttering under her breath. Emma went to the bedroom, closing the door behind her. Her hands were shaking slightly from suppressed anger. She pulled out her phone and texted Noah. Your mother just had a meltdown because I bought a coat with my own money. You need to talk to her. The reply came 15 minutes later. We'll discuss it later. Later. Always later. Noah arrived home around 8, just as Brenda was setting the table for dinner. Emma had remained in the bedroom, unwilling to face another confrontation with her mother-in-law. She emerged only when she heard Noah's voice, steeling herself for the conversation she knew was coming. Dinner was strained. Brenda had made chicken stew, placing it on the table with exaggerated care, as if to emphasize what a wonderful giving mother she was. Noah ate mechanically, not looking up from his plate. Emma moved her food around without appetite, waiting. Finally, Noah put down his fork and sighed heavily. Emma. She looked up, meeting his gaze. Mom says you bought an expensive coat. $800. Yes, Emma confirmed. With my salary. Noah glanced at his mother, who was watching with thinly veiled satisfaction. Yeah, okay, but... He hesitated. You should have checked with us. We're a family. We make financial decisions together. Emma set her fork down very carefully. Checked about what? About needing a warm coat for winter? About how I spend money I earned? That's not the point, Noah said, his voice rising slightly. The point is, we live together. We share expenses. We need to agree on large purchases. Agree with whom? Emma asked, her voice deceptively soft. With your mother? About my paycheck? Noah grimaced. Don't be like that, Emma. I'm just saying you need to be more sensitive. Mom works hard, she cooks, she cleans. And I don't? Emma interrupted. I work full-time. I help with housework whenever she lets me. I've tried to contribute to groceries and bills, but am constantly told, this is my house. I'll pay for it. Sometimes you act... Noah paused, looking to Brenda for support. Well, not very tactful. Brenda nodded triumphantly. Something inside Emma snapped. Not very tactful. Buying a coat with her own money was tactless. Going to work every day. Coming home to criticism. Sleeping next to a husband who hadn't touched her in months. Saving every penny she could to escape. None of that mattered. What mattered was that she had dared to do something for herself without permission. I see, she said quietly. It's all clear now. She stood up from the table and walked out of the kitchen, hearing Brenda's voice behind her. See, Noah? Her attitude is completely soured. She used to at least listen to what you told her, and now... Emma closed the bedroom door, cutting off the rest of the sentence. She sat on the bed, her mind strangely clear. She had honestly tried to live in peace, stayed silent, endured, avoided conflict. She had been saving her money so she could leave quietly, without drama. But every day they chipped away at her a little more, making it clear that she would never be good enough, never be accepted, never be equal in this household. 3 more months, she reminded herself. Just 3 more months and she would be free. But even as she thought it, she wondered if she could last that long. If the person she would be after 3 more months of this treatment would still recognize herself at all. The following week passed in strained silence. Brenda maintained a frigid distance, addressing Emma only when absolutely necessary, and always with an air of wounded dignity. Noah retreated into his work, leaving early and returning late, clearly avoiding the tension at home. Emma moved through her days mechanically, going to work, returning home, eating dinner in silence, and retreating to the bedroom. The blue coat hung in the closet, unworn since that first day. She couldn't bring herself to put it on again, knowing the fresh round of criticism it would trigger. On Friday evening, Emma was reading in bed when a light knock sounded at the door. She looked up, surprised. Brenda never knocked. "Come in," she called, setting aside her book. Brenda opened the door, her expression strangely hesitant. Instead of her usual commanding posture, she seemed almost uncertain, clutching her smartphone in one hand. "Emma," she began, her tone uncharacteristically solicitous. "You're an accountant. You understand banking matters." Emma's guard immediately went up. "Yes. I need help with something." Brenda twisted the edge of her cardigan with her free hand. "It's a loan application. Online. I don't understand all this internet business." Emma studied her mother-in-law carefully. Brenda's cheeks were flushed, her eyes avoiding direct contact, clear signs of discomfort. Brenda Watson, who prided herself on never needing help from anyone, was actually asking for assistance. "A loan for what?" Emma asked. "Home improvements," Brenda replied quickly. "I want to replace the windows and update some of the wiring. The bank already approved me for $20,000. I just need to complete the online application and well, these things are confusing." Something didn't add up. The apartment's windows had been replaced 5 years ago with energy-efficient models. Brenda had mentioned it several times when bragging about her financial savvy. And there was nothing wrong with the wiring. "Why not ask Noah?" Emma suggested. "He deals with online forms for work all the time." "He's busy," Brenda waved the question away. "Always on the phone with clients. You're smart with numbers and all this technical stuff. It would take you 5 minutes. The flattery was so out of character that Emma's suspicions deepened. But curiosity won out. "All right," she said, extending her hand. "Let me see." Brenda handed over her smartphone with an expression of relief that seemed almost genuine. "Thank you. It's right there, the open application." Emma took the phone and examined the screen. It was indeed a loan application from a reputable bank, $20,000 at 12% interest for a 3-year term. The loan had been pre-approved based on Brenda's credit score and assets. "They already have your identification details?" Emma asked. Yes, everything's there. I just need to complete the form and confirm." Emma began filling in the required fields: Brenda's contact information, employment history. She was listed as a part-time consultant for the school district, though she hadn't actually worked there in years, and residence details. As she worked, she tried to piece together what was really happening. Brenda wouldn't take out a high-interest loan for non-existent home improvements. There had to be another reason. Then she remembered a conversation she'd overheard a few days ago. Brenda on the phone with her sister Denise, excitedly discussing some investment opportunity that promised guaranteed returns of 15%. Was Brenda planning to borrow at 12% to invest at 15%, pocketing the difference? It seemed exactly like something her shrewd, always calculating mother-in-law would do. Emma reached the section for co-borrowers and guarantors. "Do you need to add a co-signer?" she asked innocently. "No need. They approved me as is." Brenda's quick dismissal confirmed Emma's suspicions. This was a solo financial venture. Emma paused, her finger hovering over the screen. In that moment, a dangerous idea took shape in her mind. During her years as a financial controller, Emma had become intimately familiar with the intricacies of loan agreements. She knew that for certain types of family loans, banks offered a co-borrower option that granted account management privileges without financial liability. It was intended for situations where one family member might help manage the loan for another, perhaps an adult child overseeing a parent's finances. Exactly the type of arrangement Brenda was pretending to establish by having Emma complete her application. With deliberate calm, Emma navigated to the co-borrower section. She entered her own information: full name, date of birth, current address, and employer. In the co-borrower rights section, she selected account management and early repayment authority, but crucially, left the financial liability section untouched. This created a specific legal arrangement. Emma would have full access to manage the loan, including making payments, requesting statements, or even terminating the contract early, but she would not be responsible for repaying the money. That obligation remained solely with Brenda as the primary borrower. It was a small loophole, a subtle detail buried in the fine print that most people never read. Banks offered it to accommodate families helping each other with financial management, but it could be weaponized in the wrong hands. In the wrong hands. Or perhaps, Emma thought with cold clarity, in exactly the right hands. She completed the remaining fields and presented the phone to Brenda. "I filled everything out. You just need to review it and confirm with the verification code they'll send you." Brenda squinted at the screen, scrolling quickly. "Everything looks right?" "Yes," Emma confirmed. "Check it yourself." Brenda skimmed the text, her eyes barely pausing on any of the details. As Emma had anticipated, she didn't bother reading the full terms and conditions. Why would she? Her daughter-in-law was the financial expert. She had done it correctly. A text message arrived with the verification code. Brenda entered it and pressed Submit. The screen changed to a confirmation page. Application approved. Funds will be deposited within 24-48 hours. "Well, thank you," Brenda said, taking back her phone, the familiar coldness already creeping into her voice. "At least you were useful for something." Emma nodded silently and watched her mother-in-law leave the room. When the door closed, she leaned back against the headboard, her heart racing. She had just done something that could change everything. Or nothing. It depended entirely on what happened next. She hadn't planned to use her access to the loan. It was merely insurance, a countermeasure in case things got worse, a way to protect herself if necessary. But deep inside, in a place she rarely acknowledged, a small ember of righteous anger glowed. Not rage, but something colder, more methodical. Emma had never been one for dramatic confrontations or slamming doors. She preferred to wait, to plan, to act decisively when the moment was right. Now she had a lever, a way to shift the balance of power if she needed to. She opened her own banking app and navigated to a new section, Co-Borrower Access. She entered the details from Brenda's loan and waited. The system accepted her credentials and displayed the loan information, $20,000, pending deposit to Brenda's account. Status, active. Emma closed the app. She wouldn't do anything yet. This was just preparation, just in case. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of Brenda's delighted exclamation from the kitchen. The loan money had arrived. Over the following days, Brenda's mood improved dramatically. She hummed while cooking breakfast, smiled at Noah, and even nodded civilly to Emma at dinner. The money had clearly been very important to her plans. A week later, at dinner, Brenda mentioned casually to Noah, "I've put half of the loan money into a certificate of deposit at 15% for 6 months. Can you believe it? I'll make money on the spread, borrowed at 12% and invested at 15%. That's smart business." Noah nodded vaguely, not really following his mother's financial machinations. Emma ate her meal in silence, absorbing the information. $10,000 was already locked away in a CD, impossible to access for 6 months without substantial penalties. The following day, Emma overheard Brenda on the phone with her sister. "Yes, Denise, I transferred the $10,000 to your account. Remember, you're paying me back with 3% interest in 2 months. That's what we agreed." So that was the plan. $10,000 in a CD and $10,000 loaned to Denise at a markup. Brenda was playing amateur banker, using the borrowed money to generate profit for herself. Clever, greedy, typical Brenda, always looking to maximize her advantage, to squeeze extra benefit from every situation. Emma continued her routine, working, saving, counting down the days until she could leave. The atmosphere in the apartment had improved slightly with Brenda's financial windfall, making the daily interactions marginally more bearable. Then came the Friday that changed everything. Emma arrived home later than usual, having stopped to look at a promising apartment listing on her way from the subway. She was mentally calculating how quickly she could give notice if she signed a lease next week when she opened the apartment door. Noah and Brenda were in the living room, deep in conversation. Emma started toward the bedroom, hoping to pass unnoticed, but Noah called her name. "Emma, come here, we need to talk." Something in his tone made her pause. Noah was seated on the couch, his expression serious. Brenda stood by the window, arms crossed, watching Emma with an odd combination of triumph and nervousness. "What is it?" Emma asked, setting down her purse. Noah took a deep breath. "I checked our accounts today. You've been keeping things from me." Emma's heart rate accelerated. Had he discovered her savings? How? "I don't know what you mean," she said carefully. "You're spending," Noah said, his voice hardening. "That coat was just the beginning, wasn't it? You've been making withdrawals from the account I transfer your allowance to. Small amounts, but they add up. $50 here, $100 there. Spending money behind my back." Emma stared at him, momentarily speechless. This was about her allowance card, the one she rarely used except for occasional lunches or subway fare. "Noah, I barely touch that money. Most of it just sits there." "Don't lie," he snapped. "I checked the statements. There are regular withdrawals." "Probably automatic fees from the bank," Emma suggested. "Or maybe—" "Enough excuses." Noah stood, his face flushed. "Mom was right. You've been taking advantage of our generosity, living here rent-free while secretly spending money on yourself. Well, it stops now." He pulled something from his pocket, Emma's allowance card. The one linked to the account where he deposited her monthly $500. "I've closed the account," he announced, a strange gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. "I've blocked all your cards. From now on, if you need money for anything at all, you'll have to ask me directly." Emma couldn't process what she was hearing. "You did what?" "You heard me." Noah stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You'll have to beg me even for tampon money. Forget about your credit cards." Behind him, Brenda nodded approvingly, a smug smirk on her face. In that moment, something crystallized in Emma. The previous 3 years of subtle humiliations, of being diminished day by day, had been leading to this, their attempt to break her completely, to render her utterly dependent and powerless. "I see," she said quietly. "A hungry woman will quickly become compliant," Brenda added from her position by the window, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Then you'll understand who the lady of the house is." Emma nodded silently, lowering her eyes in apparent submission. Inside, a hurricane raged, but her face remained calm. She had learned over the past 3 years not to show emotion, to hide everything behind a mask of composure. Noah and Brenda waited for a reaction, tears, begging, anger, but received none. "I understand," Emma repeated softly. Noah seemed slightly taken aback by her calm acceptance, but quickly recovered his self-satisfaction. "Good. Go think about your behavior." He turned to his mother. "Let's finish our show, Mom." They returned to the couch, dismissing Emma completely. She walked to the bedroom, closed the door quietly, and sat on the edge of the bed, her hands resting on her knees, her breathing measured and controlled. She counted to 10, then 20, then 30. When her hands were steady, she pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. Her main savings account, the one Noah knew nothing about, showed the balance she expected, $25,200, untouched, safe. Then she navigated to the co-borrower section and logged into Brenda's loan account. The full $20,000 had been disbursed. The payment schedule showed the first installment due in 3 weeks. She examined the list of available operations: early repayment, account management, contract termination. Emma's fingers didn't tremble as she selected transfer funds and entered the full amount, $20,000. In the recipient field, she searched for and selected the Children's Hospital Foundation, a registered charitable organization with an impeccable reputation and irrevocable donation policy. She paused, her finger hovering over the confirm button. Was she really going to do this? 3 years of restraint, of careful planning, of avoiding confrontation, all cast aside in one impulsive act. But it wasn't impulsive, she realized. It was perfectly calculated. They had pushed her to this point deliberately, believing she would break, believing she would submit. They were wrong. Emma pressed confirm and entered the verification code that arrived by text. The screen changed. Transfer complete. Thank you for your generous donation to Children's Hospital Foundation. She wasn't finished. She navigated to the account management section and blocked Brenda's access to any further loans or credit from the bank. Finally, she filed a request for early contract termination, triggering the bank's automated repayment demand. Under the terms, the primary borrower, Brenda, would be required to repay the full amount within 3 days or face substantial penalties and interest rate increases. Emma knew very well that Brenda couldn't possibly gather $20,000 in 3 days. Half was locked in a CD, the other half loaned to Denise. Emma set the phone down on the nightstand, rose from the bed, and walked to the closet. She pulled out her duffel bag and began packing methodically. Jeans, t-shirts, underwear, toiletries, important documents. Just the essentials. Everything else could be replaced. She moved efficiently, without haste or panic. This moment had been coming for 3 years. She had been preparing for it, consciously or unconsciously, since the day she realized Noah would never choose her over his mother. From the living room came the sounds of a television show, canned laughter, dramatic music. Noah and Brenda, oblivious to what had just happened, planning their next move to subdue Emma into proper submission. She zipped the bag, put on her blue coat, and took one last look around the room where she'd spent the past 3 years of her life, where she'd slowly disappeared, piece by piece, day by day. No more. Emma picked up her bag and walked into the hallway. As she passed the living room doorway, Brenda's phone rang. Her mother-in-law glanced at the screen with annoyance, then answered. "Hello? Yes, this is she." Emma paused, leaning against the doorframe, and watched as Brenda's expression changed from irritation to confusion to horror. The color drained from her face. Her hand, holding the phone, began to tremble. "What? No, that's impossible. There must be some mistake." Noah stood up, alarmed by his mother's reaction. "Mom? What is it?" Brenda thrust the phone at him, her voice shaking. "The bank. They're saying the money is gone. All of it. Transferred to charity. And I have to repay the full amount in 3 days, or they'll add penalties and report to credit agencies." Noah grabbed the phone. "This is Noah Watson, Brenda's son. What's going on?" He listened, his face darkening. "What co-borrower? My mother doesn't have a co-borrower." He turned slowly, the phone still at his ear, and saw Emma standing in the doorway with her packed bag. Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by shock and then rage. "You," he whispered, lowering the phone. "What did you do?" Emma looked at him calmly. "The same thing you did. I blocked access to money that wasn't mine. It's my mother's loan. You had no right." "I had every right," Emma interrupted, her voice steady. "I am the co-borrower with management privileges. Your mother asked me to process the loan application herself. She signed the contract without reading it. Check it if you don't believe me." Brenda snatched the phone back and frantically scrolled through her emails, finding the loan agreement. She scanned the document, her face growing even paler. There it was in black and white. Emma Marshall Watson, co-borrower with account management authority. But it said," Brenda stammered. "You didn't read it," Emma finished for her. "You relied on me because I'm the accountant, the financial expert. And I did everything correctly. Legally, it's airtight. I had the right to manage those funds, and I exercised that right." "Where?" Noah's voice rose to a shout. "Where did you put it?" "I donated it to the Children's Hospital Foundation," Emma replied. "An irrevocable gift." Silence fell. Brenda stared at her daughter-in-law, white-faced with shock. Noah opened and closed his mouth, struggling to find words. You've lost your mind," he finally managed. "You stole $20,000 from my mother." "I didn't steal anything," Emma corrected him. "I transferred it to a worthy cause." "There's a difference. To steal would be to take it for myself. I gave it away. Your mother took out the loan and spent the money as she saw fit. Now she has to pay it back." "But you're the co-borrower." Noah seized on this like a lifeline. "You'll be sued too. You'll have to pay it back." Emma shook her head. "No, Noah. I listed myself with management rights but without financial obligation. Read the contract carefully, since your mother didn't. All financial responsibility falls on the primary borrower. That's Brenda. I only managed the account and exercised my legal right to redirect the funds. Brenda looked at her phone again, scrolling frantically through the contract. Her lips moved as she read, her eyes widening in horror as she confirmed what Emma had said. "The $10,000 in the CD," she whispered. "I can't withdraw it early without penalties, and Denise has the other 10. She can't pay it back for 2 months. And the rest I spent on whatever you wanted," Emma nodded. "Just like you always do. I know you were playing financial games, trying to profit from the interest differential. Greed was your downfall." Noah stepped toward his wife, his face contorted with fury. "You'll fix this right now." "You'll call the bank and tell them—" "I won't tell them anything," Emma interrupted. "What's done is done. The transfer is irrevocable. The money is gone." She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and straightened her coat. "You just blocked my card, Noah, announcing that I'd have to beg you for money, even for tampons. You thought you put me in my place, made me compliant. But you forgot one important thing." "What?" he growled. "That the card you blocked wasn't the only one I had. My salary account is perfectly fine. I barely used your allowance anyway. So no, I won't have to beg you for anything." She turned to Brenda. "But your mother will have to beg everyone she knows. The bank gave her 3 days." Emma walked to the apartment door, opened it, and turned back one last time. "By the way, Brenda, you said a hungry woman quickly becomes compliant. Let's see who becomes compliant when their wallet is empty." The door closed behind her with a soft, definitive click. Emma stepped into the elevator, her heart pounding, but her mind clear. She had just burned every bridge behind her. There was no going back now. As the elevator descended, she leaned against the wall and took her first truly free breath in 3 years. Outside, the early evening air was crisp, the sky darkening to deep blue. Emma pulled out her phone and ordered a ride to a small hotel she'd researched months ago. Affordable, clean, and far enough from the apartment that Noah wouldn't think to look for her there. While waiting for the car, she blocked Noah's number and deleted his contact. Her phone immediately began ringing, an unknown number. Noah, using someone else's phone. She declined the call and put her phone on silent. The driver arrived within minutes. "Rough day?" he asked, noticing her bag. "Just moving on," Emma replied, and said nothing more during the 15-minute drive. The hotel was exactly as described online. A modest 3-story building with simple but clean rooms. Emma checked in, paid for 3 nights, and took the elevator to the 2nd floor. Her room was small but functional. A queen bed with crisp white linens, a desk, a television, a bathroom with a shower stall. She set down her bag, removed her coat, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time since leaving the apartment, Emma allowed herself to feel the magnitude of what she'd done. She had walked away from her marriage, destroyed her mother-in-law's financial schemes, and cut all ties with the life she'd been living for the past 3 years. A laugh bubbled up, surprising her. Not hysterical, but genuinely amused. They had tried to break her, to render her helpless and dependent. Instead, they had pushed her to reclaim her power in the most dramatic way possible. Her phone buzzed with texts. She glanced at the notifications. 7 messages from Noah, ranging from furious demands to return immediately to plaintive requests to just talk about this. She deleted them all without reading the full content. Emma ordered food from a nearby restaurant, took a long, hot shower, and settled on the bed with her laptop. She created a new email address, unlinked from any of her previous accounts, and sent a message to her supervisor at work, explaining that a family emergency had come up and she would be taking a week of her accrued vacation time. Then she opened her apartment hunting app and began sending inquiries to several listings. No more waiting, no more saving for the perfect escape. She needed a place of her own immediately. Her phone continued to buzz with calls and texts. Emma finally turned it off completely, set an alarm on the hotel clock radio, and slipped between the sheets. Despite everything, or perhaps because of it, she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Morning sunlight filtered through the curtains when Emma woke. For a moment, she was disoriented. then remembered everything. She was free, alone, uncertain about her future, but free. She turned on her phone to a flood of notifications. 28 missed calls, 43 text messages, and 12 voicemails. Most were from Noah, but several came from unknown numbers, likely Brenda using different phones, or perhaps even extended family members recruited to reach her. Emma deleted everything without listening or reading. Whatever they had to say, she wasn't interested. She had heard enough for a lifetime. After breakfast in the hotel cafe, Emma spent the morning calling apartments from her short list. By noon, she had scheduled 3 viewings for that afternoon, all one-bedroom units within her budget, all available for immediate occupancy. The first was too dark, with windows facing a brick wall. The second had suspicious water stains on the ceiling. But the third, a small but well-maintained unit on the 6th floor of a 1960s building, felt right immediately. The windows faced east, flooding the space with morning light. The kitchen was tiny but functional, the bathroom recently updated. The bedroom could barely fit a queen-sized bed, but it had a closet with built-in shelves. "I'll take it," Emma told the property manager, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s. "Application takes 3 to 5 days to process," the woman replied, handing Emma a form. "First month's rent, last month's rent, and security deposit due at signing." "What if I pay 3 months up front?" Emma asked. "I need to move in as soon as possible." The property manager raised an eyebrow. "Running from something, honey?" Emma met her gaze steadily. "Starting something new." The older woman studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I've been there. Let me talk to the owner. If you can pass a basic credit check and pay 3 months up front, maybe we can expedite things." By that evening, Emma had signed a 6-month lease and received keys to her new apartment. The property manager had convinced the owner to accept Emma's offer, with the understanding that she would still undergo the standard background check. Emma returned to the hotel, gathered her few belongings, and checked out, ignoring the front desk clerk's surprise at her early departure. A taxi brought her to her new address, her new home. The apartment was empty except for the refrigerator and stove that came with the unit. Emma set down her bag in the center of the living room and walked from room to room, running her hands along the walls, opening and closing doors, testing faucets. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Her space, her rules, her life. She spent that night on the floor in her sleeping bag, using her duffel bag as a pillow. Despite the discomfort, she slept better than she had in years. The next morning, Emma ventured out early to purchase essentials, an air mattress, basic kitchenware, towels, and toiletries. She didn't have the luxury of waiting to find the perfect pieces for her new home. She needed functional items immediately. At a discount furniture store, she ordered a simple platform bed, a small dining table with 2 chairs, and a comfortable armchair for delivery the following day. At a home goods store, she selected bedding, pillows, a shower curtain, and kitchen basics. By afternoon, her credit card had taken a significant hit, but her new apartment was beginning to look habitable. Emma sat on her newly inflated air mattress, eating takeout from a paper plate, and felt a profound sense of peace despite the chaos of the past 48 hours. Her phone, which she had briefly turned on to coordinate deliveries, showed another barrage of missed calls and messages. This time, one caught her eye, a text from her colleague Shayla. "Are you okay? Noah came by the office looking for you." Seemed upset. Emma responded, "I'm fine. Left Noah. We'll explain later. Please don't tell him anything if he comes back." Shayla's reply was immediate. "Holy shit. Whatever you need. My lips are sealed." Emma smiled, grateful for the simple loyalty. At least one person was in her corner. That night, as she settled onto her air mattress, Emma allowed herself to wonder what was happening back at the apartment. Had Brenda managed to gather the money to repay the loan? Was Noah helping her? Were they still in shock, or had their shock turned to fury? It didn't matter, she decided. Their problems were no longer her concern. She had spent 3 years being their emotional punching bag, sacrificing her needs, her dignity, her very self, to maintain a peace that was never truly peaceful. She was done. Emma fell asleep planning her next steps, purchasing a new wardrobe to replace what she'd left behind, setting up utilities in her name. updating her address with the post office and her employer. The practical tasks of building a new life. A life that for the first time in years belonged solely to her. 4 days after leaving, Emma returned to work. She had emailed her supervisor over the weekend, explaining that she had separated from her husband and moved to a new address without going into details. Monday morning, she walked into the office with her head high, dressed in new clothes, her blue coat a vibrant shield against the curious glances of colleagues. Shayla intercepted her at the elevator. "Conference room," she whispered. "Now." Once inside with the door closed, Shayla embraced her tightly, then stepped back, examining Emma's face. "You look different," she said finally. "Lighter. I feel lighter," Emma admitted. "What happened?" "Noah showed up here Friday afternoon, practically frantic. Said there had been a misunderstanding, and he needed to reach you immediately." Emma laughed without humor. "A misunderstanding, that's one way to put it." She gave Shayla an abbreviated version of events, the blocked card, the ultimatum, the loan, and her dramatic exit. Shayla's eyes widened. "You transferred $20,000 to charity? From your mother-in-law's loan?" "I did." That's... Shayla struggled for words, then grinned. "That's fucking brilliant." "It was legal," Emma shrugged. "I had management rights on the loan. The contract was clear." "Still," Shayla shook her head in admiration. "I didn't think you had it in you. 3 years of taking their crap and then, boom!" "Everyone has a breaking point," Emma said simply. "They found mine." "What now? Noah seemed pretty determined to find you." "I've blocked his number, changed my email. I have a new apartment with no connection to him. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow about filing for divorce." Shayla's eyebrows rose. "You're sure? No chance of working things out?" "None," Emma replied without hesitation. "Noah made his choice a long time ago. I just finally accepted it." The workday passed in a blur of reports and meetings. Emma focused on her tasks with unusual clarity, as if a fog had lifted from her mind. Colleagues commented on her energy, her decisiveness in meetings, the confident way she presented financial projections to the executive team. This was who she had been before, competent, articulate, assured. Somewhere along the way, living under Brenda's constant criticism and Noah's passive acceptance, she had lost touch with that person. Now she was reclaiming herself, piece by piece. After work, Emma met with a divorce attorney, a straightforward woman in her 50s who listened to her situation without judgment. "Uncontested or contested?" the attorney asked after Emma finished explaining. "Uncontested, hopefully. We don't have children. No joint property except a few pieces of furniture, which I'm happy to leave with him. No shared debts." "And if he contests it?" Emma considered this. "He might, out of pride or spite, but there's nothing to fight over. I just want out." "New York allows for no-fault divorce," the attorney explained. "We file a petition stating the marriage has broken down irretrievably for at least 6 months. Your husband can object all he wants, but the court will eventually grant the divorce even without his cooperation." "How long?" "If he doesn't contest, 3 to 6 months. If he does, it could drag out longer, but the outcome will be the same." Emma nodded. "Let's file as soon as possible." Later that evening, in her slowly developing apartment, Emma sat at her small dining table reviewing the divorce paperwork. The legal language was dry and impersonal, reducing 3 years of emotional investment to a series of checkboxes and declarative statements. She signed the petition without hesitation and placed it in the envelope provided by her attorney. Tomorrow she would mail it, setting in motion the formal dissolution of her marriage. A strange sense of calm settled over her. Not happiness exactly, but resolution. This chapter of her life was closing, and a new one beginning. Her phone buzzed with a text from Shayla. "Drinks tomorrow after work? My treat. We'll toast your independence." Emma smiled and replied, "Absolutely." Life was moving forward. Not in the way she had once imagined, but forward nonetheless. And for the first time in years, she was the one directing its course. Emma woke to sunlight streaming through her bare windows. 2 weeks had passed since her dramatic departure, and her small apartment was slowly transforming into a home. The bed frame had arrived, along with a modest couch, a coffee table, and a small bookshelf. She'd hung simple curtains and placed a plant, a resilient pothos, on the windowsill. Sitting up, she checked her phone. No missed calls from unknown numbers. Either Noah had finally gotten the message, or he'd temporarily exhausted his supply of friends' phones to borrow. The divorce papers had been filed and served. Her attorney had confirmed that Noah had received them. Now it was a waiting game. Would he sign without contest or drag things out in a futile attempt to force a reconciliation? Emma showered and dressed for work, selecting a simple blouse and slacks from her still limited wardrobe. Most of her clothes remained at the apartment with Noah and Brenda. She'd decided against trying to retrieve them, preferring to make a fresh start rather than risk another confrontation. The financial strain was significant. Between first and last month's rent, security deposit, new furniture, and clothing, her carefully accumulated savings had dwindled from $2,200 to just under $10,000. She'd created a strict budget, calculating exactly how long she could maintain her current lifestyle before needing to find additional income. As she made coffee in her tiny kitchen, Emma contemplated her options. She could look for a higher-paying position at another company. She could take on freelance accounting work during evenings and weekends. She could downgrade her lifestyle further, though there wasn't much left to cut. Her phone buzzed with a text from Shayla. "Lunch today? I have news." Emma smiled and replied, "Sure." 12:30? The morning at work passed quickly. Emma had thrown herself into her job with renewed focus since leaving Noah, earning approving nods from her supervisor. If she could secure a raise or promotion in the coming months, it would ease her financial concerns considerably. At lunch, she met Shayla at their usual cafe a block from the office. Her friend was already seated, practically bouncing with excitement. "What's the news?" Emma asked, sliding into the booth. Shayla leaned forward conspiratorially. "James from HR told me there's an opening for a senior financial analyst at Crawford & Sons. They're a client of ours, and he has connections there. The salary is at least 20% more than what you're making now." Emma's pulse quickened. "Are they accepting applications?" "Better than that. James said he could get you an interview next week if you're interested. I hope you don't mind, but I mentioned you might be looking for new opportunities." "Mind? Shayla, that's incredible. Thank you. After everything you've been through, you deserve a break. Besides," Shayla added with a grin, "I told James if he helped you get a better job, I'd finally agree to have drinks with him." "Shayla." "What? He's been asking for months." "I was going to say yes anyway. This just gave him extra motivation." They laughed together, and Emma felt a warmth spreading through her chest. Friendship, real friendship, was something she'd almost forgotten during her years with Noah and Brenda. Social interactions had dwindled as Brenda subtly criticized Emma's friends or made excuses why they couldn't host gatherings at the apartment. "So," Shayla said, growing serious, "how are you really doing? The new place working out?" Emma considered the question. "It's small, and I'm still figuring out how to make it functional. But it's mine. No one comments on how I load the dishwasher or criticizes the brand of coffee I buy. And emotionally? Honestly, I have moments when I wonder if I overreacted, if I should have tried harder to make things work with Noah." Emma stirred her iced tea thoughtfully. "Then I remember how it felt when he told me I'd have to beg for money, and I know I made the right choice. Have you heard from him?" "He's finally stopped calling. My attorney says his attorney reached out about the divorce. Apparently he's asking for a reconciliation meeting before proceeding." "And will you meet with him?" Emma shook her head firmly. "There's nothing to discuss. I'm not going back, not under any circumstances." "Good," Shayla nodded approvingly. "Don't let him manipulate you into second-guessing yourself." After lunch, Emma returned to the office with a renewed sense of purpose. She updated her resume that evening, emphasizing her achievements as a financial controller and adding the specific skills the Crawford & Sons position required. The weekend arrived with unexpected challenges. Emma's carefully planned budget encountered its first major test when her laptop, essential for both work and managing her finances, stopped functioning. The repair estimate was nearly $700, and a replacement would cost even more. She sat on her couch Friday evening, staring at the black screen, calculating how this unplanned expense would impact her finances. Before leaving Noah, she would have simply put off the purchase, continuing to save methodically for her escape. Now she had to adapt, to make difficult choices with limited resources. After careful consideration, she decided to withdraw $800 from her dwindling savings and purchase a modestly priced replacement. It was a necessary investment in her future, even if it meant tightening her budget even further in the coming weeks. Saturday morning, Emma ventured to an electronics store and selected a basic model that would meet her needs without luxurious extras. As she waited in the checkout line, a familiar voice behind her sent ice through her veins. "Emma?" She turned slowly to find Denise, Brenda's sister, staring at her with a mixture of surprise and disapproval. "Hello, Denise," Emma said quietly. Denise's lips thinned. "Noah and Brenda have been worried sick about you." Emma doubted that very much. Angry, yes. Inconvenienced, certainly. But worried? Unlikely. "I'm fine, as you can see," she replied evenly. "What you did," Denise leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Transferring Brenda's loan like that. It was cruel. She's had to borrow from everyone she knows. Her credit score is ruined." Emma felt a flicker of the old guilt, the habitual need to apologize, to smooth things over. She suppressed it firmly. "Brenda took out a loan to play amateur banker, trying to profit from interest differentials," she said calmly. "She didn't read the contract she signed. Her financial difficulties are the result of her own choices." "She had to withdraw her CD early and lost thousands," Denise persisted. "And I had to scramble to pay her back the money I'd borrowed. Noah's working 2 jobs trying to help her cover the payments." For a moment, Emma visualized it. Brenda frantic, Noah exhausted, both of them facing the consequences of their actions for perhaps the first time. But she quickly pushed the image away. Their problems were no longer her concern. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, not entirely sincerely. "But I've moved on with my life, and I suggest you all do the same." Denise opened her mouth to respond, but Emma had reached the front of the line. She paid for her laptop and walked away without looking back, her heart pounding but her resolve intact. The encounter left her shaken, however. Back in her apartment, she double-checked that the address on her mail forwarding was correct, that her social media accounts were either deactivated or set to maximum privacy, that Noah remained blocked on every platform. She couldn't risk him finding her. Not yet, not until she felt more secure in her new life. Sunday afternoon, as Emma was setting up her new laptop, her phone rang with an unknown number. Normally she would ignore it, assuming it was Noah trying yet another borrowed phone. But something, intuition perhaps, made her answer. "Hello? Is this Emma Watson?" A man's voice, unfamiliar. "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Julian Mercer. I'm the hiring manager at Crawford & Sons. I received your resume from James in HR at your current company. I hope you don't mind the Sunday call." Emma's breath caught. "Not at all. Thank you for reaching out. I was impressed by your qualifications. We're looking for someone to head our financial analysis team, and your experience seems like an excellent match. Would you be available for an interview this week?" The position, Julian explained, wasn't just a senior analyst role as Shayla had thought. It was for financial director, a significant step up from Emma's current position, with a corresponding increase in salary. The starting compensation was $8,000 per month, nearly double what she currently earned. "I'd be very interested in interviewing," Emma said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her excitement. They arranged a meeting for Tuesday afternoon. After hanging up, Emma sat in stunned silence. A job like this would transform her financial situation overnight. She would be able to rebuild her savings, furnish her apartment properly, perhaps even look for a better place when her 6-month lease ended. It seemed too good to be true. a perfect opportunity appearing just when she needed it most. For a moment, she allowed herself to hope that perhaps the universe was finally balancing the scales in her favor. Tuesday afternoon, Emma left work early for her interview at Crawford & Sons. She told her supervisor she had a doctor's appointment, not wanting to reveal she was job hunting until she had an offer in hand. The Crawford & Sons offices occupied the 15th floor of a sleek downtown building, all glass, chrome, and understated luxury. Emma straightened her jacket, not the blue coat, which still carried too many associations with Noah, and approached the reception desk. Julian Mercer proved to be a thoughtful interviewer, asking insightful questions about Emma's experience and approach to financial management. By the end of their 90-minute conversation, she felt confident she'd made a strong impression. "I'll be frank," Julian said as they concluded. "You're exactly what we're looking for. I need to complete interviews with 2 other candidates, but I expect to make a decision by the end of the week." "Thank you for the opportunity," Emma replied, gathering her portfolio. "I look forward to hearing from you." As she stepped out of the elevator into the building's marble lobby, a familiar figure near the exit made her freeze mid-step. Brenda, her former mother-in-law, stood by the revolving doors, clearly waiting, her expression a mixture of determination and anxiety. She looked different, thinner, her usually perfect hair slightly disheveled, her designer clothes replaced by a shabby beige cardigan and ill-fitting slacks. Emma considered retreating to the elevator, but Brenda had already spotted her. There was no escape. Taking a deep breath, she walked forward, maintaining a calm exterior despite her racing heart. "Brenda," she said coolly when they were face to face, "what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you." Brenda's voice lacked its usual commanding tone. "Please, just a few minutes. How did you find me?" "Your colleague, the tall one with the red hair. I went to your office again. She wouldn't tell me where you live, but she mentioned you had an appointment in this building today." Emma made a mental note to have a serious conversation with Shayla about boundaries. "I have nothing to say to you." She tried to move past, but Brenda stepped into her path. "Emma, please." There was a note in her voice that Emma had never heard before. Desperation. "I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I didn't realize. I didn't understand." "Understand what?" Emma asked, against her better judgment. "How unhappy you were. How poorly I treated you." Brenda twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture entirely unlike her usual confident demeanor. "I was used to being in charge, to having things my way. I didn't see what I was doing to you. To us." Emma studied the older woman's face, searching for signs of manipulation or deceit. Instead, she found genuine distress. The realization was unsettling. She had expected anger, accusations, demands, not this apparent contrition. "Why are you here, Brenda? What do you want from me?" "I want you to come home," Brenda said simply. "Noah misses you terribly. We both realize our mistakes now. Things will be different, I promise. I won't interfere in your marriage. I won't criticize or try to control you." For a brief moment, Emma imagined it, returning to the apartment, to Noah, to a life where Brenda treated her with respect, a fantasy where her husband stood by her side as an equal partner, where her opinions mattered, where she was valued. Then reality reasserted itself. People didn't change so fundamentally, not without years of work and genuine desire. Brenda's newfound humility was born of financial desperation, not true understanding. And Noah had shown his true colors when he blocked her card and told her she would have to beg for money. "No," Emma said softly but firmly. "I'm not coming back. Not ever." "But we can change," Brenda insisted. "We already have. Noah sees now how wrong he was. I see it too." "What you see is the consequence of your actions," Emma corrected her. "For the first time, you're facing real difficulties, and you don't like it. That's not change, Brenda. That's discomfort." "Emma, please. I spent 3 years trying to please you," Emma continued, her voice strengthening. 3 years of criticism, of being made to feel small and worthless in my own home. 3 years watching my husband choose you over me every single time. I'm done. I've moved on with my life, and I suggest you do the same." Brenda's face crumpled. "What about the loan? The bank is adding penalties. My credit score is ruined. I might lose the apartment." "That's not my problem," Emma replied, surprised by her own coldness. "You took out the loan. You signed without reading. You spent the money. Now you're facing the consequences." "But you set this up." Brenda's voice took on a hint of the old accusation. "You knew what would happen." "I exercised my legal right as a co-borrower with management privileges," Emma said evenly. "Everything was within the terms of the contract you signed. I didn't break any laws. I didn't steal your money. I simply redirected it to punish me." "To show you that control works both ways," Emma corrected. "You and Noah tried to make me dependent, helpless. I demonstrated that you too could be vulnerable. The lesson has been learned. Now go home, Brenda, and stop looking for me. I don't need your apologies. I don't need your presence in my life. It's over." She moved past her former mother-in-law and through the revolving doors, emerging onto the busy sidewalk. The spring air felt cleansing after the charged atmosphere of their confrontation. Emma was halfway to the subway when she heard rapid footsteps behind her. "Emma, wait!" Noah. Of course Brenda hadn't come alone. Emma turned slowly, steeling herself. Noah looked as changed as his mother, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his normally immaculate business attire replaced by rumpled khakis and an untucked shirt. 5 minutes, he pleaded, slightly out of breath. "Please." Against her better judgment, Emma stepped aside, allowing other pedestrians to pass. 5 minutes. "I was wrong," Noah began without preamble. "So wrong. I let Mom control our lives. I didn't stand up for you. I didn't listen when you tried to tell me how unhappy you were." "No, you didn't," Emma agreed coldly. "For 3 years. I know. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "There's no excuse. But Emma, I love you. I miss you. Please come home so we can work this out." "That's not my home anymore, Noah. It never really was." "Then we'll get a new place," he said quickly. "Just us. Anywhere you want. I've been looking at apartments. I found one near your office. 2 bedrooms, good light, in our budget." "Our budget," Emma repeated. "The same budget that included an allowance for me? The same budget that you used to try to control me when you blocked my card?" Noah flinched. "I was an idiot. A complete, total idiot. I don't know what I was thinking. Mom suggested it, said it would make you more appreciative, and I just went along with it, like I always did. But I've changed, Emma. I swear I have. People don't change overnight." "It hasn't been overnight. It's been 3 weeks of hell, watching my life fall apart, realizing everything I've lost. Everything I threw away." His voice broke. "I'm in therapy now, twice a week. I'm learning to understand my issues with Mom, why I could never stand up to her." Emma felt a twinge of something, not sympathy exactly, but recognition. The man before her bore little resemblance to the controlled, confident sales director she had married. He seemed smaller somehow, more vulnerable. "I'm glad you're getting help," she said, softening slightly. "I mean that, but it doesn't change my decision." "What can I do?" Noah asked desperately. "Tell me how to fix this." "You can't fix it, Noah. Some things, once broken, stay broken." Emma glanced at her watch. "Your 5 minutes are up. I need to go." "Emma, I've filed for divorce," she said firmly. "The best thing you can do is sign the papers and let me move on with my life." Noah's face crumpled. "Is that really what you want?" "Yes." No hesitation, no doubt. "It's what I want." She turned and walked away, half expecting him to follow. He didn't. As she descended into the subway station, Emma reflected on the encounter. 3 weeks ago, seeing Noah and Brenda brought low would have given her satisfaction, vindication for the years of suffering she'd endured. Now she felt only a vague sadness for what might have been, mixed with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice in leaving. They were no longer part of her story. Whatever happened to them now, whether they overcame their financial troubles, Whether Noah truly changed through therapy, whether Brenda learned genuine humility, it didn't concern her. Her focus was on her future, her career, her independence. Emma boarded the train, finding an empty seat by the window. As the subway pulled away from the station, she realized she was smiling, not from malice or triumph, but from the simple knowledge that she was free, truly free, for the first time in years. Friday morning, Emma's phone rang as she was preparing for work. Julian Mercer's number appeared on the screen. "Emma, good news. We'd like to offer you the financial director position at Crawford & Sons." The salary was even better than initially discussed, $80,500 per month, with a comprehensive benefits package and potential for performance bonuses. Emma accepted without hesitation, agreeing to start in 2 weeks after giving notice at her current job. She hung up feeling slightly dazed. In the space of a month, she had left her marriage, established her own home, and now secured a position that would transform her financial situation. The speed of these changes was breathtaking. Her supervisor took the news of her departure with disappointed understanding. "We hate to lose you, Emma, but I can't match that offer. You deserve this opportunity." Shayla was both thrilled and devastated. "I'm going to miss our lunches," she pouted over celebratory drinks that evening. "But seriously, Emma, I'm so proud of you. Look at everything you've accomplished in just a few weeks." "I couldn't have done it without you," Emma replied sincerely. "You've been my rock through all of this." "Please," Shayla scoffed. "I just provided moral support and occasional intel. You did the hard part. You found the courage to leave, to start over." Emma reflected on this as she sipped her wine. Had it been courage? Or desperation? Or perhaps both, the slow accumulation of hurts, finally reaching a tipping point where staying became more painful than the uncertainty of leaving. The following week passed in a blur of transition, training her replacement at work, preparing for her new role, settling more firmly into her apartment. Emma used part of her final paycheck to buy a small desk and chair for her living room, creating a workspace for the times she would need to work from home. One evening, sorting through a box of documents she'd brought from the office, Emma found a business card she'd forgotten, a therapist recommended by a former colleague months ago. On impulse, she called and scheduled an appointment. The therapist, Dr. Chen, was a thoughtful woman in her 40s who listened attentively as Emma outlined the past 3 years of her life. "What brings you here now?" Dr. Chen asked when Emma finished her story. "You've already taken decisive action, left your husband, started a new job. What are you hoping to gain from therapy?" "Understanding, I guess," Emma replied after considering the question. "I want to know why I stayed so long, why I let them treat me that way. I need to make sure I don't repeat the pattern." Dr. Chen nodded. "That's insightful. Many people in your situation might focus exclusively on the wrongs done to them, which were significant, without examining their own role in the dynamic." "Are you saying it was my fault?" Emma felt a flicker of defensiveness. "Not at all," Dr. Chen clarified. "But relationships, even dysfunctional ones, involve patterns of behavior from all parties. Understanding your part in those patterns doesn't assign blame. It gives you power to make different choices in the future." Emma began meeting with Dr. Chen weekly, gradually unpacking the complex web of factors that had led to her situation with Noah and Brenda. Her own childhood in a chaotic home had created a longing for stability that made her vulnerable to Noah's initial promises. Her tendency to avoid conflict had enabled Brenda's increasing control. Her self-worth, already fragile from an emotionally distant father, had eroded under Brenda's constant criticism. "The important thing to remember," Dr. Chen told her during one session, "is that understanding these patterns doesn't mean you deserved what happened. It means you're taking responsibility for your own healing." 3 months after leaving Noah, Emma received notification from her attorney that her divorce had been finalized. Noah had ultimately signed the papers without contest, including a statement that he waived all claims to Emma's property and finances. That evening, Emma bought a bouquet of yellow tulips for her apartment, a small celebration of her official freedom. She arranged them in a simple glass vase on her dining table and sat with a cup of tea, watching the last rays of sunlight play across the petals. Her phone lay on the table, silent. She had long since stopped receiving calls or messages from her old life. Noah, Brenda, even Denise. They had finally accepted that she was gone for good. Emma's new job was challenging and rewarding. As financial director, she managed a team of 6 analysts, overseeing major investment decisions and financial strategies for the company. Her colleagues respected her expertise. Her boss valued her input, and for the first time in years, she felt professionally fulfilled. Her small apartment had become a true home, modestly furnished but comfortable, decorated with plants, books, and a few carefully chosen art prints. She had made friends in the building, a retired teacher on the 4th floor who shared her love of mystery novels, a young couple across the hall who occasionally invited her for dinner. Life wasn't perfect. There were still moments of loneliness, nights when she woke reaching for someone who wasn't there. There were financial challenges as she rebuilt her savings, occasional doubts about whether she'd made the right career move, days when therapy sessions left her emotionally drained. But there was something else, something that outweighed all the difficulties. Peace. The constant knot of anxiety that had lived in her chest for 3 years had dissolved. The habitual flinch when she heard a door open, the automatic apology ready on her lips, the careful monitoring of her every word and action, all gone. Emma was free, not just from Noah and Brenda, but from the version of herself that had accepted their treatment. She had discovered a strength she hadn't known she possessed, a capacity for decisive action when pushed too far. As twilight deepened outside her window, Emma raised her teacup in a silent toast to herself, to her journey, to the woman she was becoming. The past was behind her. The future, with all its uncertainty and possibility, stretched ahead, and it was entirely her own.